Sukuna is not the same person at any 2 points in Jujutsu Kaisen. The version trapped in Yuji's body operates at 5% of his original power. The version who kills Satoru Gojo has 2 extra arms, a second mouth, and 1,000 years of planning behind every move he makes. Most people watching the series treat him as one consistent threat the whole way through, but he's not. He has 9 distinct stages, and understanding the difference between each one is a difference between following the story and actually seeing what Gege built underneath it. Stage 1. The original body. Originally, Sukuna was a human sorcerer born during the Heian era, the golden age of Jujutsu. His body in this original form had 4 arms and 2 mouths. The extra limbs were not there for show. There were functional fighting advantages that no other sorcerer in the series had. With 4 arms, he could execute technique hand signs with 2, while keeping 2 free for combat. His second mouth could chant incantations continuously, without any interruption to what the rest of his body was doing. His innate technique was Shrine, and he wielded Kamotoke, a Vajra-like tool that discharged lightning, and Hitten, a Trishula trident. He used all of these to wipe out the Sun, Moon, and Star Squad, the 5 MD Generals, and the Deshi Pacification Squad. He never lost a single fight in his prime, and eventually, he would move to Stage 2, not through defeat, but through choice. Stage 2. 20 Indestructible Fingers. Sukuna split himself into 20 indestructible fingers. Each one held his full power, preserved at its peak for 1,000 years. His consciousness stayed dormant during this period, waiting for a specific type of human, someone strong enough to contain him without being overridden. And his awareness only returned the moment Yuji swallowed the first finger. Stage 3. First incarnation in Yuji, 1 to 4 fingers. Yuji eating the first finger at Sugisawa High School was the moment Sukuna woke up for the first time in 1,000 years. This was also his weakest active state in the entire series. 1 finger out of 20 means a fraction of his soul is present. He is scattered, incomplete, and significantly below his Heian era power. Even so, he immediately destroyed a special grade cursed spirit that had consumed one of his own fingers and was fused with its energy. Then he activated Malevolent Shrine. He held his ground against Gojo, the strongest sorcerer of the modern era, for 10 full seconds before being pushed back into his vessel. That is what Sukuna looked like at roughly 5% of his full power. But the fighting wasn't the point of this stage, the planning was. Stage 3 Sukuna identified the 10 Shadows technique as something worth taking from the moment he fought Megumi, and deliberately spared him. Then Sukuna made a binding vow. Yuji rejected the terms initially, so Sukuna proposed a fight. If Yuji won, he would be revived for free with no vow attached. If Sukuna won, the vow would be accepted, and Yuji would lose all memory of it. Sukuna defeated him instantly, and the terms activated automatically. Yuji woke up, having been revived with no knowledge of what the revival had cost him. Sukuna stored that guaranteed future minute of control from the binding vow and did not spend it for years, waiting until the conditions for stage 5 were right. Stage 4, growing incarnation in Yuji, up to 15 fingers. What happens when a vessel survives long enough to gather 15 fingers? Despite Sukuna's presence inside him growing with each finger consumed, Yuji stayed in control. Sukuna spent most of this period watching rather than acting, manifesting a secondary eye and mouth on Yuji's cheek, so he could observe the world and deliver commentary without taking the body over. He intervened when Mahito made the mistake of touching his soul twice, wounding the curse severely on both occasions, and making clear that his territory inside the vessel was not accessible to anybody. Outside of that, he was patiently watching Megumi accumulate experience with the 10 Shadows technique, tracking the Shikigami, studying the shadows, and building a complete internal picture of the technique he intended to steal. Shibuya brought the stage to its peak, when Jogo force-fed Yuji 15 fingers during the incident, pushing Sukuna to 75% of his full power. He overwhelmed Jogo, and then he fought Maharaga. Sukuna's approach was precise. He used Malevolent Shrine slashing attacks to force Maharaga to complete an adaptation of slashing phenomena, and once that adaptation was locked in, slashing became useless against the Shikigami. So before Maharaga could begin a second adaptation, Sukuna hit it with a completely different phenomenon, a mysterious fire technique he activated by chanting open. Maharaga had no adaptation ready for it and was destroyed. Sukuna left Shibuya with thousands of casualties, 1 defeated divine Shikigami, and a complete internal picture of the 10 Shadows technique he intended to claim. Stage 5, Megumi's body in complete control. The transfer happened through the binding vow Yuji had forgotten. During his guaranteed minute, Sukuna created a cursed object from Yuji's own pinky finger, using the method Kenjaku had showed him, then forced it into Megumi. Sukuna transferred into Megumi's body, leaving Yuji behind. Immediately, he punched Yuji through several buildings, then summoned Nue to strike both Maki and Yuji with lightning. The only problem with stage 5 was that Megumi had not been broken yet. His movement and cursed energy were more stable in general, but every time he directed force at the people Megumi cared about, the interference increased. Sukuna operated both techniques during this phase, but with a weakened domain and fluctuating power. He still had the advantage in every fight he entered, deflecting Yuji, reading Maki, and stopping Hana Kurusu's Jacob's Ladder by using Megumi's memories to trick her into dropping it mid-cast. Even weakened, Sukuna's intelligence and technique access kept him ahead of everyone engaging him. Angel's technique Extinguishment came close in ending him at this stage, stripping his cursed energy from the vessel and a pillar of purifying light. But Sukuna survived it by pretending to be Megumi, exploiting Hana's feelings, and then getting her to stop the technique herself before it finished. That was Sukuna operating with a weakened domain and suppressed output, and he still found a way out. But he couldn't hold that position forever, and stage 6 was a fix for this problem. Stage 6. Megumi's body, full control. Urame prepared the bath using a solution processed from dissolved cursed spirits, carefully broken down and strained into the right texture. Sukuna soaked in it, and the cursed energy in the mixture submerged Megumi's soul below the threshold where he couldn't interfere with Sukuna's plans. With Megumi fully suppressed, Sukuna had both Shrine and the 10 Shadows technique available at full capacity for the first time since the transfer. When Yorizu's true sphere generated infinite surface pressure, and her domain made it a guaranteed hit, Sukuna used Maharaga's prior adaptation to her liquid metal specifically, since the true sphere was constructed from the same liquid metal Maharaga had already adapted to, and it was destroyed instantly. But Sukuna's cruelest choice was yet to come. He fought Yorizu using only the 10 Shadows technique. Then, Sukuna forced Megumi's body to kill Megumi's own sister, and ultimately pushed Megumi's soul into deep despair. Later, Sukuna went to Shinjuku to fight Gojo, and there he utilized the full potential of Stage 6 by using Maharaga not as an attack, but as an adaptation instrument. The central problem was Gojo's infinity, which can't be bypassed by targeting Gojo directly, because it protects everything around him from attacks aimed at him. The solution required two separate steps carried out in the right sequence. First, Sukuna had Megumi's soul shoulder the adaptation burden across 4 total adaptations, allowing Maharaga's sword to progressively adjust until it could cut through infinity completely, all without Sukuna risking the destruction that normally comes with failed adaptations. Second, Sukuna extracted the model of that completed adaptation and used it to expand the target of his own dismantle from Gojo to the world itself. A slash with no appointed target gave the infinity no specific thing to intercept. Gojo was bisected horizontally at the waist and lost his life. Sukuna stood over him for a moment before moving on. He called Gojo magnificent and said he would remember him for as long as he lived. Stage 7, True Form. Perfection has a specific shape, and Kashimo saw it with X-ray vision. Right after Gojo's battle, Kashimo's mythical beast Amber pushed Sukuna far enough that he completed full incarnation during their fight, restoring the 4-armed 2-mouth structure of his original body. Kashimo described it as utter perfection for a sorcerer, and that assessment was accurate in a specific technical sense. 2 extra arms meant simultaneous hand signs and physical combat, eliminating the requirement that Sukuna stop doing one to do the other. The extra mouth meant continuous incantation chanting, with no cost to what the hands were doing at any moment. Sukuna retrieved Kamutoke from the ice block Urame delivered, and wielded it in one of his 4 hands, while the other stayed free for combat and hand signs. His secondary mouth chanted the world-cutting dismantles incantation to end the fight. The Shinjuku fights that followed were a slow drain on every resource he had. His inability to heal using reverse curse technique was not caused by divine flame, but by the accumulated brain damage from Gojo's unlimited void and the progressive soul damage from Yuji's soul targeting punches. And Yuji's strikes were not simply landing hits on his body, they were peeling Sukuna's soul away from Megumi's, layer by layer, lowering his output and control with each one. Sukuna improvised binding vows mid-battle to reconstruct domain conditions on the fly, and fought Yuta in Gojo's body, and correctly analyzed the conditions and time limits of Yuta's body hop technique, deducing when and how his copied technique could be used in that specific setting. Ultimately, Toto set a triple bluff with Boogie Woogie that caught him off guard, and allowed Yuji to land another Black Flash. Stage 8, the Domain of Ordinary Life. Yuji's domain trapped Sukuna inside a manifestation of ordinary life, not a battlefield or a cursed space, a simple quiet town that reflected the kind of everyday existence that Yuji valued. They walked through it together without fighting, and Yuji showed him a farm, where they watched horses and he talked about spending his allowance on ice cream. They caught crayfish in a park and argued about which was better, the larger American species Sukuna caught, or the smaller but rarer Japanese one Yuji found. Then, Yuji told him why he had built the domain, and explained that he used to believe life was about fulfilling a role, and that a proper death meant completing that role. But he had changed his mind. He now believed that even a person who raises no family, builds nothing, and leaves no mark, still creates fragments of memories that carry weight. That there is no correct answer to what makes a person valid, no predetermined function anyone is born to serve. That treating lives as worthless was a single thing he could not forgive. Sukuna said he understood all of it and felt nothing, and he was not lying about either part. Yuji told him that was fine. He had not brought Sukuna into the domain to change him. He brought him there to show him, and then offer him a way to stop. Nobara Kugisaki's resonance struck the last remaining finger from outside the domain, binding Sukuna in place and cutting off his ability to activate his own domain in response. Yuji used that opening to land Dismantle precisely on the boundary between Sukuna's soul and Megumi's, targeting the seam where the two souls connected, rather than the body itself. Every soul targeting punch he had thrown across the entire Shinjuku fight had been weakening that seam without fully breaking it. This one found enough damage already there to push through. Megumi found a last fragment of will and pushed back from inside. The connection broke and Sukuna lost control of the body. He was reduced to a small deteriorating mass of flesh with no vessel to stabilize him. Yuji stood over what was left and offered his own body, the same arrangement they had started with years earlier, a chance to continue existing rather than disappear entirely. For the first and only time in the series, Sukuna used Yuji's full name and told him not to underestimate him. He remained accursed to the very end and refused. It was the final act of ego and defiance, not a desperate attempt to survive. Eventually, he disintegrated into dust. Stage 9, Afterlife Peace. In the passageway for souls, Mahito found him. Sukuna reflected on the path he had chosen, and admitted that it was a gamble. He said he could have gone down different roads, but had feared his own curse would have consumed him if he had tried. He also told Urame that if he reincarnated, he would try to live differently.